Look who's back for more. Welcome everyone to the Arcane Archive. That's right. We're so happy to see you guys. It's honestly, we have quite the killer selection for you today, I do believe, here with the Cautionary Chronicles. Isn't that right, Sammy?
Yep, we're back with
Oh,
more
we're
wonderful
back.
stories.
Back again, better than ever. Maybe I'll admit I am trying to put on a nice jovial mood, but I nearly cried a second ago from that last story that we read. That hit me so surprisingly. I was not expecting that at all. That was a twist. That was a twist that threw me for a loop. And you guys are just gonna have to stay tuned to see exactly what I'm talking about here. But before we go ahead and dive into today, as always, we're just gonna go ahead and just clean house a bit. As always, we appreciate you guys' support. Be sure to like and comment down below, in the video, what you guys think of these stories we're reading. If you guys would like us to cover any other specific topics or aspects of tabletop RPGs, be sure to subscribe and share the channel, since we primarily rely upon word of mouth to kind of get the word out about it as well. Again, we appreciate it so much. Hit that notification bell so you never miss any of the videos that we drop, usually on Wednesdays around 11 o'clock or so. But with that, I do believe all of the preambles out of the way. And so, yes, let us get started with today's stories. First one we have on the docket for you today is titled Real Fireball. And yes, it is as terrifying as you might be imagining. This is by OP Prestigious Ant 51. So, I was invited for my first time playing D&D to a game with all new players. This includes the GM. Despite us all being new to the game, we all were very into D&D, having watched YouTube videos and other such things long before ever getting a chance to actually play. We were all aware that as new players, we were going to make mistakes and not realize it, as no one in the group has experience. Our GM was really into planning everything out, going so far as to make maps and dungeons and sets out of paper mache. He had 7 different 3D models of dungeons and buildings that we could encounter in our game. This is just an estimate, however, as we never actually got to see them all. Each one took up the entire length of the table, around 8 feet by 4 feet, I'm guessing. These sets could also be up to 2 to 3 feet high at times. That's some dedication right there. Honestly, that's impressive. For paper mache, everyone was really excited after seeing not only the starting map, but also all the others stacked on top of each other and set off to the side with a blanket covering them. Well, even though we couldn't see the sets fully, we knew what they were by looking at the bottom. And after our first session, one of our players wanted to do more and get a little bit more creative and immersive. She was a sorcerer and decided to start bringing objects and other things that could act as effects for each of the spells that she cast. It was a fun addition for our session. At least it was until until she decided to cast color spray. She did this with a can of spray paint. First off, color spray is a spell specifically conjuring light, not paint. So this particular aspect didn't make much sense to anyone, which we explained to her, which she kind of just ignored. Secondly, by using the spray paint, she ended up ruining a part of the set that the GM had worked so hard to make. At this point, we made a rule that spell effects that could cause damage to the set were no longer allowed. She followed the rules, and for several sessions after this, it all worked out just fine. We were taking our time, understanding the mechanics as such. Gameplay ended up being slower, but eventually we got to the point where our sorcerer leveled up enough to cast Fireball. And I am sure you all can guess where this is going. Our sorcerer took a plate out of her bag, placed it on the table so that the maps that we were working on with wouldn't be damaged. She then took the mini that she was targeting and put it on the plate. Finally casting Fireball, she crumpled up a piece of paper, lit it on fire, and threw it at the mini. Well, then don't you go ahead and know that piece of paper then bounced off the mini, rolled over the edge of the plate, and lit the entire paper mache playmat on fire as well. And then, as it turns out, that paper mache is extremely flammable. Did you know that? Shit, we didn't know that until right then. And the entire set ends up going up almost instantly. Stat sheets and other papers we were working with quickly followed suit, and in the chaos, the fire somehow jumped from the table to the other paper mache maps and set those on fire as well. So at this point, it should be noted this was the GM's house that we were in there playing at, and the GM freaked. Soon as he saw the fire, he ran out the house and used his cell phone to call the 911 folks to come and help put out the fire that was happening. One of the other players left to look for a fire extinguisher that he never found, and honestly, we were surprised that he even came back at all. And, I'll admit that I personally was kind of frozen at the initial jump up and move away from the table because I just, I'd never seen somebody literally light some stuff on fire so fast before. It was kind of just, I was out of my element. I got to tell you. At that point, the girl who did start the fire started crying and apologizing frantically. And honestly, she was kind of no real good or help to anybody. It was only the last two players who finally ended up doing it, really into something that was helpful whatsoever. One of the two, the only other girl at the table, I might add, and just figured that would be an important aspect to like cover and mention. At the table, goes over to the snack area, grabs the 2-liter bottle of pop, and says, "I cast shape water," repeatedly as she then pours all 3 bottles over the fire on the table and actually manages to put it out. And honestly, the fact that she not only put out the fire, but she actually turned it into a joke was just kind of awesome, in my opinion. FYI, she was not playing with a magic character. However, she did have a feat that gave her access to the spell Shape Water, which somehow just made the whole thing funny, in my opinion. But, I guess I kind of just like to laugh at maybe morbid situations to, lower the tension, maybe. Anywho, the final guy saw what the girl was doing and finally jumped into action himself and started using a blanket to smother the fire on the other paper mache play sets that was also still going up, if you had forgotten earlier when I had mentioned that. I have no idea what you would call those exactly, but maps, play sets, dungeons, whatever. Something that I decided to help with once I saw that it was actually working. We somehow managed to put the fire out with only surface level damage to the house, thank God. But the guy who put the fire out also had a minor burn, but that was the only real injury that occurred as a result of the incident. And after speaking to police and fire people and whatnot, we were all allowed to go home, all safe and sound and snug as a bug in a rug. A little while later, though, after things finally cooled down, when we were deciding whether or not we would even continue playing, we did eventually decide that we would continue. However, what we could not decide on is whether or not the girls who started the fire in the first place should be removed from the game. Normally, this would be a no-brainer, except that, she didn't do it on purpose. It was an accident. Well, I will say her plate idea was not the smartest, because obviously, even if it worked, she technically would have been following the rules, I guess, we had set. But she's also, just so very sorry. And, and the fact that she is completely okay with us playing without her because of what she did, and it kind of just makes me feel guilty for maybe kicking her out of the game. I don't know. What do y'all think?
What is this? What is this accent that you picked up midway through?
I felt it was like it kind of just came out of me naturally, like with all the shenanigans that suddenly happened. Like as soon as the fire was set and it happened, I just felt like they were all in. I just heard kind of like those hillbilly music start playing, where they're all just running around with chickens with their heads cut off, just frantic and stuff. I felt I don't know. It felt natural. It felt right to me, organic. But first off, what do you think of this whole thing here, bud?
Um, I mean, this is bad.
Yeah. This went from 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah, this is a bit unfortunate. Um, how do I put this? The idea behind making things, you know, seem fun, I get it.
Providing realistic effects and whatever to cool things yeah, I can maybe see the appeal.
Yeah,
But
but
I mean, yeah, what do you think, buddy? What are your initial thoughts on this? I picked out a lot of these stories that we're reading today, so I'm interested to kind of see what your ideas or thoughts on probably reading this again for the first time, really.
this is I get no harm I think was intended here,
No, clearly not
but
intended, but it
man,
it was certainly reaped. I think,
yeah, that's a hard one.
decent amount. Would you, I mean, given their situation or what happened, if you were in their shoes, would you keep her in the game or would you kick her?
Um, I mean, me personally, you're gone. But the reality is, like, not only did you cause the problem, you didn't even
Do anything to fix
contribute to
it.
solving the problem either.
Yeah.
Like, no, I mean, like, I get it's scary, but like, unless y'all are like children, ever you should know how to
I
like,
mean,
throw a blanket on top of a fire. It's not that hard. Um, I don't know.
yeah, I
I've
don't
dealt
know.
with fire before. It's really not that difficult.
It's, you know, it's unless there's some pretty huge extenuating circumstances or like, you know, yeah, something that like makes the fire like explode out like exponentially quickly. Like, yes, papier-mâché is extremely flammable and it can catch fire very quickly, but it usually would also only be in a very like isolated area. Like, it's just the papier-mâché. I also don't understand how it somehow spread from the table to then the other papier-mâché like structures and stuff as well. Like, I'm not a lot of this, yeah, was just like, people freezing. Like, you would think that, the GM at his house, yeah, would either have like, a fire extinguisher or just some other means of like, extinguishing fire, at least you would hope. Like, yeah, go get some water. Like, yeah, go like get a pitcher of water or something, like it's yeah, or take the paper mache mat that is currently on fire, dump it in the bathtub or something. Like, but obviously, it is a very well-known thing that when people panic in situations, they just suddenly lose any and all logical thought and processing, and they just kind of, freeze up like a deer in the headlights. Kind of like, oh, how OP says that they kind of froze up too, because they just like they just, I guess they're very unused to this kinds of situations here. But I mean, what do you think about the girl in general, like with how with her whole thought process and in this build up and how we got to this whole situation here?
like, again, love the idea of just kind of like making it realistic, having fun with it. That's great. I love that. What, but really dumb. No, just a really dumb issue. Do not bring fire to,
Yeah,
like,
I'm like
I don't know if it's just me, but like, the reality is there's no reason to bring fire into places that have flammable objects,
I just
you know?
I just like one of the biggest aspects, like, and I was reading through the comments a little bit earlier as well, and I kind of noticed one, like, I like this one a lot. This one goes, well, if it was an accident, maybe let her back in. This might have been a wake-up call for her that she desperately needed. But do tell her that she is on thin ice. However, one thing to consider is that she did start out this story using spray paint on your DM set. Like, that doesn't already convey the sort of mindset where you might not think crap through before doing something. And even then, who in their right mind would think using fire in anything like this would be a good idea? Like, I feel like that's a pretty good approximation of like kind of how I feel about it too, and I think how you feel. Like, first off, spray paint. Why the fuck would you use spray paint indoors at all? Like that, like, you realize that shit is most of the time toxic and poisonous, right? And you're gonna use spray paint on a mini in a map in a game, like, to simulate your like, why don't you just use colored water then or something? I don't know, like spray paint. I literally feel like it's hard for me to believe that it's like you literally bought spray paint for this and you don't know the actual risks of utilizing spray paint. Like, that's why most spray paint is used, outside, or if it's inside, it's usually when people are wearing, face masks and shit to protect their their face, as well as not breathing in any of the harmful toxic chemicals and agents and shit for spray paint most of the time. Like,
Almost like that's kind of also why, when people are using spray paint, they're often wearing masks.
that's what I'm saying. They have face masks for that. Like, it's like that. What, like, why? Again, that in and of itself, like, right away tells me that she's, like, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She's just fucking stupid. Like, that is some of the dumbest shit. I find it almost impossible to, and then on top of that, she continues to prove it even further true by, okay, I guess, it's like, oh, hey, but she put a little thought into it. She brought a plate. She brought a protective plate to put the mini on, and then she just lit something literally on fire.
My other thing is, why are you
threw
throwing fire at the mini to begin with?
That's what I mean. What did you think was going to happen? Because you might, at the very least, still end up damaging the mini, which costs money. Like, what are you doing? What is this? What are we doing here? Like, and my biggest thing too is I also don't understand how none of the other people stopped her, because the amount of time it would take for her to pull out, like, a lighter, ball up some paper, and then start to light the paper. Like, she can't do that like instantaneously, in my opinion. Like, I'd be sitting there going like, whoa, 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 whoa. As soon as she pulled out the lighter, because I'm pretty sure people could have seen where this was coming by the time she pulled the lighter out and like started crumpling up a piece of paper. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, 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 no. No, you are not going to light something on fire in my house. Okay? You're especially not going to light something on fire and then throw it in my house. Okay? That's not going to happen. Like, I don't understand any of these people. I think almost all of them were kind of stupid, in my opinion. Like, because I cannot for the life of me imagine how no one sought to stop her before this whole thing happened. And I find it exceedingly difficult to believe that she did it so fast before anybody could react. It's like, it's not those turn of events. She had to literally meticulously place the plate, put the mini on there, rip up a piece of paper, ball it up, take out the lighter, like light the lighter, and then start to light the piece of paper, which is not going to go up instantaneously in flames. Like, everyone here, in my opinion, just seemed like an absolute troglodyte. Like, and again, the fact that so many of them, and I get it, like I said, we try to give some grace, some leeway. People panic and things happen, but the fact that this wasn't even like that high stakes of a situation. In all honesty, the paper mache caught fire. Okay, cool. Paper mache, again, very much so, is very, very flammable. It is infamously flammable. But it's also very light. Like, it's not going to burn like super strongly. You could still 100% most likely have just picked up the model or the whatever, just take it to the bathroom. Like, or do what she did, like get some drinks or some water, I guess in this case soda, pour it, then douse it. Like, it's not, or yeah, same thing. I guess the blanket thing worked too. Like, it's not that high stakes of a situation if you do not panic and just fuck shit up exponentially more with inaction. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, everybody here, just except for like two people, just absolutely screwed the pooch in this regard, where it was just like, oh my good fucking God. Like, for me, I don't know if I could let her back in, because this was the second time she did something that was not only potentially like, not only just straight stupid, but also harmful. Because again, even the first thing was potentially harmful with spray paint. Like, I don't know, maybe she got like a more natural or quote unquote organic or whatever spray paint where it's like there's less harmful toxic chemicals in this. Maybe it's like, it's still spray paint. Okay, spray
It
paint
is definitely still spray paint.
You're gonna let it, spraying it in an enclosed space, it gets in the air and it can still be potentially harmful or toxic to even just breathe that shit in. Like, it's not this entire thing. Like, and that's the thing. It's difficult for me to make an actual real like verdict, because I would have shut that shit down the round one. Like literally, I would have been like, as soon as she whipped out that spray paint can, and if she did spray it, like if I wasn't able to stop her before she did it, I would be like, no, nope, we're not doing that anymore. Nothing, because I'd be interested to know what were some of the other effects that she utilized that weren't so destructive or messed up. Like, did she get a fan when she cast like gust of wind or something? And she just like set up a fan or something? Like, okay, sure, I can see that maybe. Like what
I
happened
sure
when
hope so.
what happens when she casts, mold earth? Does she like? I assume you're maybe like working on a wooden table. Is she gonna like use a fucking like a pail or like some kind of shovel and like carve out a 5 foot chunk of that table to move that? Like what?
Again, God, I hope so.
Like what would be like because again, if she was willing to more so just use theater of the mind for those types of spells where it's like I can't actually physically change the thing here, so we're just gonna like, why did she think that using spray paint and a literal paper ball of fire? Oh, we're starting off strong today, folks. We're starting off very strong today. That I don't know. Because for me, I would have shut that shit down immediately. And if she's tried to do it again, I would then at 100% would have been like, nope, you're done. We're not doing that. You're not doing that. We're done. Uh, so I don't know. Like I just don't. It's hard for me. One big thing about me, I do not suffer fools very well. Um,
What? I'm sorry.
and
That
and
is the most like I do not suffer
I do not
fools.
suffer fools well. Uh,
That was amazing. Thank you.
and you're welcome. I pride myself on having such a vast vocabulary to utilize at my whimsy.
Ooh.
But it's difficult for me, man. Like when people showcase, because this here's the thing. I don't mind stupid people if they are good people at heart, right? If you are like stupid, but you're like a good like Goofy, we love Goofy. Goofy's an idiot, but he's a lovable idiot, and he means well, and he's great. We love Goofy, and so if you're a Goofy, I love it. I'm absolutely here for it. But there is something to be said where it's just like your stupidity is now literally putting my life, like people's lives, in danger at this point. Like you have Darwinism clearly has not done its job because you have apparently zero self-preservation instinct at this point. It's so bad it's literally leaking out and affecting other people. And so I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I could in good conscience continue to play or interact with someone like that. I just don't. I just don't think I could. I feel I would be far too scared and worried about myself and everyone else who engages with them. Which that sounds bad because it sounds like I'm advocating for their isolation or their exile, which I'm like, I'm not. Again, dumb people deserve love and camaraderie and companionship too, of course, just like anybody does. But it's like, bro, if you're really gonna start almost setting my house on fire, like I'm sorry, I gotta toe the line somewhere,
We
my
gotta
man.
go.
I
I
gotta toe
gotta
the line some
leave.
here. You know what? With that, well, let's go. Let's move on to the next story of the day. Sammy, go ahead. Why don't you take it away? Let us know down in the comments below. Would you allow this person back into your games or your life if
Or
someone
your
acts
house.
like just in general in your house? Like if someone almost literally burned your fucking shit down out of just stupidity, wasn't maybe on purpose, it was a complete accident, and but it was also something though that they kind of did before. They also did some other questionable things before. Would you give them I guess, third chance? Third chance. Let
Eighth
us know in the comics down
chance.
below. Go ahead, buddy.
All right. I got player continued doubling down, which led to their death, as well as many other things. Just a fair warning. I don't necessarily agree with how this was handled, but I liked the story anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm really torn about this right now. I just finished DMing a session for our weekly game, and the party was fighting a battle, and one of my players had a pet, and he wasn't really using the pet at all, so I pointed it out. The player said, "Do you want me to be more reckless then?" And I said, "Do whatever is most fun for you." Come to the end of the combat, and a giant powerful beast the party was seeking out helped them finish off the last of the enemies. Tensions were high
Dope.
because he wasn't necessarily
A
a
friend.
friend, but he
Yeah.
wasn't a foe either. After some
Hmm.
convincing, the beast asked them to follow. They reached a crossroad where the beast and tribesmen that were with the beast ordered them to put on handcuffs to proceed into the tribe. The party wasn't so happy about it, but three of them put the cuffs on. The same player from before was being very difficult and doubled down when the beasts and the tribe ordered them over and over again to put on handcuffs. The party was given a choice: put the cuffs on or leave. I can't say this enough, but they were ordered to put them on way too many times. The player continued doubling down, reaching into their inventory, offering the beast candy, etc. The beast moved its giant mouth to her hand and bit her arm off all the way, or bit her arm off all the way up to the shoulder. Even after that, she kept insisting on not putting on cuffs or on leaving.
Well, quite frankly, that if the arm is gone, cuffs don't really make any
Yeah,
difference now
well,
anyway.
yeah,
Like he kind of defeated
yeah.
the purpose with that.
Yeah,
So
the moment you did that is the problem. So
yeah, that is
this
an
then
issue. That should
this
not have
then
happened.
turned into a fight. The party had some ritualistic items on them, which ended up letting them summon another giant beast to fight the one that just bit off the one character's arm. I ended up making the beast that they summoned do an AoE attack, and it killed the player that didn't back down. It
Wow.
also killed another player, but I decided I didn't want to make the party pay the price for the stupidity of just one player. So I I retconned the other
Yeah, I
player's
think he
death.
meant to say Deus ex machina, but
Yeah,
instead it
I'm
says
not doing that.
Deus ex machinate.
Yeah, they're definitely not native English speaker.
It's still
This
great
should
to
have been a
me though. I
TPK
like
by all
that.
means, but I didn't want to kill them for the actions of a single player. Then it shouldn't be a TPK. Now that all the
No.
party ran away, with the exception of the dead player, we discussed things, and we aren't sure as a group if we are retconning or continuing on. The reason I am typing this is I'm not sure if I want to boot the player that let this all happen. Let this all happen?
Hey,
They
buddy.
said they don't care and that they may or may not do this again. They said they just wanted to test how far I would go. If she
I've had
and
people like that before.
if she pushed
That's
me after I told her about how she could have her pet attack more. So she took the reckless thing about combat into the social stuff for the rest of the encounter. I am torn on what to do with the other player right now. It's easy to boot her because her PC is dead, but at the same time, I'm not sure if this is the right choice. I know I could have handled it better by maybe saying they forced her character to wait outside, but it felt like the right action at the time. So yeah, any insight would be helpful. I don't mind sharing more details. Update: the player decided to leave and just announced it, so I guess there's that.
it
So
seemed pretty
I-
clear,
I'm
yeah.
gonna say
Like
this right now: you made a bad call. Um,
yes,
I,
yes, he
I
did.
hate to be it. Like I get the idea of doing the whole handcuffs or you cannot enter thing, but the reality is, if your goal is for them to work with a group, why are you trying to put handcuffs on them? It's just not really a fun encounter for anyone involved. Because you could easily do the same thing by saying, "Hey, give me your weapons. Give me your weapons. We're not fighting you. You're not going to fight us. Give me your weapons and you can come in." Or we're going to have a bunch of guards sitting right on you the whole time. There's ways to do it without basically saying, no, you have to not be able to do anything with your character. Um, it's a bit of a weird thing as well to then punish them with the summon that they managed to summon. Why a creature that you summon that is supposed to be fighting for you would end up AoE attacking and hitting your own party doesn't really make a whole lot of sense either. So I think you're in the wrong here. I mean, I'm not gonna say that it's not annoying to have a player like that that wants to push and whatever. And like at any given time, you could have just had them subdue the player and lock him up. If you wanted to go that route,
There
but you
was
chose dismemberment.
there was so many different
You
options. There was
yeah.
an endless amount of alternative things they could have done aside from the absolute lunacy that they chose upon, which yeah, like
So it's handcuffs or you lose the arm.
which then
The
make the
other
handcuffs completely unnecessary
Not
anyway.
even just
Again,
that. It's the fact that you're asking a party. If this is a tall order. You're asking a party to put handcuffs on because a group that they're not necessarily fully
nope, they're
allied
not they're
with.
not friends. They're not technically friends,
It's kind of a tall ask even to do that when
It
you
is.
are on good terms with another group. The fact that you thought it was reasonable to ask that they don't even know these people. That doesn't even really make a whole lot of sense to me. Um,
I mean, I will say, I guess in playing devil's advocate, like I can understand that there are some moments, especially in a narrative like this, where it is pressed upon a group that, well, you know what? Sometimes you just got to take a leap of faith, right? Sometimes you're just going to have to do some shit that, yeah, quite frankly, in all logic or reasons, probably ill advised or not the wisest or smartest thing to do. But if you need something done, if you need to get these people on your side for whatever reason, well, I guess you're going to have to take the first step and you're going to have to make yourselves vulnerable, And you're going to basically have to be like, hey, because here's the thing, how I would be interested to know kind of how they play certain things. Because for my belief, for my like the way that I usually go with like handcuffs or like, things or whatever, shit like that, like I feel like, there are ways you can get out of handcuffs. Obviously, if you have either a rogue or a ranger or a bard who have like
fuck a wizard.
expertise or skills, like even or well, again, I was gonna get to that in a second, but for like for skill classes, like they can pick the locks still most likely, like because they didn't take away your gear as well. Hopefully, I would say you still have like your gear and stuff, so they can still potentially like pick the locks for strong characters. Maybe you could try to break them too. Obviously, have to be very strong to do that most of the time. But for spellcasters, if you have teleportation, for instance, I personally have thought about this a lot, and I believe that technically speaking, there is nothing that says that you cannot like teleport out of like your clothes, for instance. Like there's nothing that says that you have to take with you whatever it is you're carrying. You can take with you things that you're carrying, but there's nothing that specifically says that you have to, technically speaking.
Yeah.
So
It's
that
also
being the
just seems like
case,
you're just punishing one person for not listening to what is ostensibly a railroad, and not wanting to hitch a ride. And like that's part of D&D is adapting. You didn't adapt at all.
that is the
Because like
problem.
because you had most of your party was down.
Yeah,
You
you
had
could have just
one,
left them outside.
yeah, or left them outside, or you just put extra guards on them. You just put extra guards on them. And like but instead of trying any of that, you went for
I'm gonna take
permanent
your arm off.
maiming.
I'm gonna rip your arm off, and not only that, but I'm gonna have the individual, the being that you summoned to help fight them, kill them off anyway. Like it's gonna backfire on them. Like you just the biggest problem is that you broke the golden rule of being a GM in that you became you weren't impartial anymore. You had a personal vendetta against that player at this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know what? Technically speaking, the way that the player was acting or even admitted acting, they were being an asshole. They were. That player was being a dickhead. They're being a douchebag. They were. Like their reasoning for being like, I just wanted to see how far you could go. Like, and the fact that you apparently pointed out to them that like, hey, you're not using your animal companion too much. And I guess they took that shit personally. And so then they had an attitude and they started some shit. So I get it. I get it. Yeah. Nobody was cool in this, all right, except for like the other players. But the two individuals involved being OP and the problem player, you guys both were fucking assholes.
Yeah,
Like
but like you were the worst.
yeah,
You're the
but
person who should be removed from the
you
group is
fucked
you,
up
not
more.
the player left on their own accord, so whatever. But like in all
Like
honesty, the person who needs to maybe take a step back and remove themselves is you. I hate to say it because it sucks, but like this is not how you handle this at all. And you showed that you can't deal with adapting and letting things, lie as they will. Because, like, low key, nothing in the story really changes if you just let them go in. Nothing. You want them to go in. So instead of letting them go in, you kill two of them, try to retcon one of them, which is also ridiculous. If you're going to retcon the whole thing. Don't retcon one player death. They both died in the same encounter. Retcon both. If you're going to retcon anything. Um, and like in all honesty, why? Why do they need to be handcuffed? Is it because you don't want violence? Okay, well then tell them. If you start shit, people will attack you. That is a deterrent. 100% a deterrent. Just say that. Have someone say that. It's not that complex. You know, and position them in the sense that like if they do start shit, there's people all around them, so you're not getting away, or things will get bad. Also, if this tribe wanted help, wanted the players to come talk to them, what is their why would they want to kill them anyway? Like it doesn't add up to me at all.
I mean, we
This
might
fight,
we
and,
might be
and
but we might be potentially missing some
well,
context of exactly
a
like,
100%. But reading
but
like the OP's comments underneath other people's comments, they're getting downvoted to shit, which is hilarious. But just the way that they're trying to every time someone asks like why did this go down this way, they just bring it back to, oh well, but they don't care and they made a mess, da 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 da, so I should kick them. And it's like you're not actually listening. You're not asking for advice. You're just talking. Um, it's just a very strange way of handling the situation, which is why I picked this. I read through it. I'm like, huh? What? Really? This is how you're handling this?
this whole thing, the way that OP handled this was quite egregious. Like they again, it was clear that, and I don't know, maybe there was some shit going on between them before this whole thing happens, and he's just not highlighting it. But it's clear that, once OP said some shit about them using their pet or whatever, I guess they took that shit personally, and then they just started to be completely resistant to what OP wanted them to do, which then made OP react and freak out and start being an asshole because they weren't doing the thing that they wanted them to do, even though everybody else was doing it, and it got frustrating. And again, I feel like there's some other shit going on that we're not aware of, because like this just feels like a crazy escalation out of nowhere for the most part. Where again, like you chose to do the cardinal sin of every GM, which is to basically just be like, hey, guess what? This happens to your character. Like this super bad, like, permanent, like negative thing happens to your character without you getting to do anything about it. Like it's literally like the first cardinal sin of GMing. Yeah. Is trying to pull some shit like that. Is to be like, yeah, rocks falls, everybody dies. It's the equivalent where it's just like some shit happens and now this happened to your character. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why people do this, and I don't know. Like OP is definitely in the wrong. I will say that the player herself giving the reasoning that she did is also in the wrong. Like they were both neither of them I think deserves to keep playing for a while. I think they both need to take some time off and really think about their lives and what they've done and who they are and become better people before they step back into the fucking TTRPG world. But with that being the case, I think we've kind of said everything we can about this. Unless you got anything else you want to touch upon, buddy?
No, that's all I got.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Then this one is titled, I haven't had a single turn in combat in 5 months. God damn, that is crazy to me. By 6,000 paisas. I don't know if I said that correctly. I apologize if I butchered that. This one is still ongoing. It's still ongoing. How are you still a part of this? But it's gone to a point where it stopped being funny a while ago. You think? Not a full horror experience, I beg to differ, but one of the most frustrating things I've experienced. This was a Pathfinder 1E campaign. Just keep that in mind. So, around 2.5 years ago, I joined an already started campaign as a substitute for another player. Now, being the newest member, I decided to adapt and fill whatever role the party needed, and most of them were frontline/tanks, Inquisitor, Fighter, Paladin, etc. Since the setting was not a gritty Game of Thrones low-level magic one, I asked if it was okay if I made a glass cannon spellcaster. The GM liked it. The party liked it. So I got to work. Now, saying the campaign was homebrew heavy would be an understatement. I'm not talking about hybrid or alternative classes, oh no, but more of the flavor of like what Balda and Kibbles provide for D&D. I'm not familiar with that reference, whatever that might be. I was not comfortable with the system yet, so I asked if it was going to be an issue if I played a rules as written build. GM said it was perfectly fine, and those classes were just flavor in case someone wanted to try something new, but not a requirement. All right, fast forward to our first fight. I am rocking less than half of the HP of the rest of the party, but I should be fine as long as I know how to position my character. Right? Well, no, wrong. Every single enemy will either spawn in combat right next to me, risk multiple attacks of opportunity just to come down to me, or the funniest example, the enemy just so happens to be hiding on the ceiling and drops right on top of me, downing me before we even get to roll for initiative. It got to the point that the enemies would just stand there above my unconscious body and wait for someone to heal me so they could just immediately down me again. They were not single enemy fights, and most of them would usually be rocking 10 to 20 enemies plus some sort of gimmick. So that meant every time my turn was skipped in death saving throws, a good hour to maybe an hour and a half would pass before it was my turn to, once again, you guessed it, roll another death saving throw. It really did start to dawn on me why every single player had a build that put them in the 3 digits of HP. When I asked my GM about the focus I was getting, they responded with well, the enemy can see you as a spellcaster, and they prioritize the person, that can kill a lot of them easily. Which, sure, very fair, I suppose. But it still didn't really sit well with me. And I'll tell you something, OP, it's not very fair, actually, at all. There is a very clear point where not everyone is automatically going to know that what you can do as a spellcaster. Either way, I brought up that I was not having fun and that maybe I should create a new character that fitted the battle mechanics better. But they said that I was filling a necessary niche and I was just unlucky. So Inquisitor and I started keeping notes as a joke of how many spells that I'd cast in combat. We noticed that last session, the last time that I was able to do anything was on June 1st, thanks to a surprise round. And I've been eating the dust ever since. I don't plan on leaving the group because, they are my friend group, and TTRPGs are honestly the only time we can hang out together monthly, without work or life being in the way. But it's getting really hard not to astral project to a better game when combat rolls around, to be fully honest. End post. OP, the fuck do you mean you're gonna stay? What are you doing? Am I taking crazy pills right now? Like what? 5 months? You can go 5 months of this just severe, clear targeting that the GM is literally not even denying? And you're clearly not, you literally aren't able to do anything. You're not able to do anything in combat. And you're going to tell me you did this for 5 months and you're going to continue to do it without any kind of putting your foot Where are your balls, man? What is happening? Sammy, am I going crazy? What is this?
No, I mean, I don't.
Me? What?
The whole
What is happening?
You can't change characters. I would just be like, yeah, well, I'm going to. I'm going to change it anyway, though.
What is happening? Okay, top voted comment. At a certain point, the GM needs to acknowledge that while yes, the enemies can see that you're a spellcaster and it makes sense for them to target you, that approach being taken in every single fight means that you aren't having any fun in combat. I understand that the GM wants to run realistic enemies in difficult fights, but surely they should also want you to be able to enjoy combat, which you're clearly not at the moment if you haven't had a single turn in combat the entire time you've been playing in the campaign. It honestly just sounds very disrespectful towards you and your time. Thank you. If they were going to do this the whole time, they should have never let you build a glass cannon caster because they clearly don't want to have to deal with one in combat. It's good that this isn't entirely ruining the experience for you, but still, 5 months without a single turn in combat is ridiculous, and your GM needs to acknowledge that. A fucking min, brother. Or sister, whichever one, I'm not sure. Either way, this shit, like, this cannot be allowed to just continue to perpetuate and perpetuate. Like, what are we doing? Where are people's balls? Where are their righteous indignation and fury over shit like this? You're just gonna take it? And oh, you've expressed your concerns. Clearly not enough. If you express them to the right extent, shit would be changing. It wouldn't just be, well, that sucks for you. And you wouldn't just be like, oh, you know what? Boy, golly, you're right. I guess I'll just keep taking it up the ass. Cool.
My bad, bud.
What are you doing? OP, I'm sorry. Like, this is absolutely horrendous. This is horrendous for you. But I am exceedingly frustrated with you because you're just taking it. You're just nothing. You're just cool. 5 months. 5 months without being able to do a single turn in combat. I don't know if that's an exaggeration or not, but even if it is an exaggeration, I assume that from what you said here, even this is not okay. Even this is not okay and not right for you. Like, is no one else saying anything? Because it seems like other people agree with you because you said you and Inquisitor started keeping notes as a joke and were able to corroborate that you haven't done shit apparently since June 1st. So, like, it's obvious to everyone. So what is stopping this from being, fucking taken care of? Hmm? How is this a thing, Sammy? How does shit like this even happen where people are just gonna uh God having
I
an
think I
aneurysm?
think the only reason they're still there is because it's their friend group, which I understand. But
I get
if
it.
they're your friend group, you should be able to be like, "Hey, dude, this sucks."
That's what I'm saying. Are they really your friends if he's gonna just literally fuck you over for 5 months? And when you tell him that you're not having fun, he's just like, tough titties. You're just unlucky, bud. I don't know what to tell you. Sucks to suck. Like, what? What are we doing?
Like if
Are
I
they
was,
your
I mean, I don't know if I
friends?
was you, I'd be like greater invisibility every encounter, never do anything without it, always never be seen.
I don't know. I mean, again, they're playing a Pathfinder first edition game, so I don't know. I don't know what level they are. I don't know what spells he has available to him right away. But apparently that's the thing. It doesn't even matter because it seems more often than not he gets downed literally before combat even actually starts.
Which I don't know how that happens.
Like it's just because it's just like, oh hey, there's an invisible dude above you or whatever, like who falls down and knocks you the fuck out before you can even roll initiative because they got a surprise round. Oh, sweet, sweet baby Jesus. Fun times all around. All abound. Great. Fuck me, dude. This shit just grinds my gears like nothing else. I said before I can't suffer fools well. I also don't suffer punk ass wuss pusses well, bro. Stop being such a wussy. Okay? That's all I feel about this. Where you're just like, well, I'm not gonna leave because they're my friends and they're my friend group. It's like, are they? Are they though? If they were, wouldn't they want you to have fun too? Isn't that the whole point? Your friends are there to elevate your experience of life, right? That's what relationships are for, predominantly. They're to elevate, expand, grow, and to overall just enrich your life more than just by being alone. I don't see this happening here, OP. I do not see it. Where's the enrichment? Where is the elevation in quality of life here for you, bud? I can't see it. Can't seem to find it. My perception check has failed exponentially. And I rolled like a 26 for me. So I don't think it's the roll. I'm pretty sure the GM's just fucking got some shit. Anyway. Sammy, why don't you go ahead and take the next one? I'm just gonna keep spinning my wheels forever on this one if possible. So go ahead, just take it away.
This is gonna be bad too, though.
Yeah, at least it'll be bad about something else, maybe.
Kind of, not really. This is the Dungeon of That Doesn't Seem to Work by Slider40327. So we're playing a
All
campaign
right.
that was across a 3.5 and first edition Pathfinder with a total
Another
magic
first edition
homebrew
Pathfinder.
overhaul by the DM. Basically, it was a stress test of the system. It's important for context here that you had to spec into a build, basically a tree of spells, just like a skill tree in many games. In short, you had to learn certain low-level spells to then get access to higher-level spells, even if you had no intention of using the low-level spells. This system is fine for wizards and story keepers, intelligence-based bard homebrew classes, because they could learn more spells from scrolls to make those prerequisites. However, as a cleric, I could only learn 4 spells a level and couldn't supplement that, and about 50% of my spell library was just prerequisites for the actual spells I wanted. I'd spec heavily into summoning and healing/restoration magic to support the party. So we get to this dungeon with me, the cleric, our story keeper, a multi-class charisma monk paladin bard sorcerer, and
Again,
a
man,
witch. Well,
3.5 slash Pathfinder 1E. Hey.
yeah. What's whatever. I
Maybe.
guess I yeah. Um we'll call it the Red Castle. We encounter our first challenge, a mirror with a bodak in it. I look at it to investigate, fail a save, and immediately gain 4 negative levels.
Jeez.
We cover we cover the mirror, and I burn a slot and some diamond dust to cast Greater Restoration. It doesn't seem to work, the DM says, but you do lose the diamonds
Why?
and the slot.
Why doesn't it work?
Cut to
Why?
our
Why
cut
does
to our
why
first.
doesn't
No,
it
it gets
work?
better. Cut to our first combat where I try to do a summon with a spell. Doesn't seem to work, the DM says again, and moves on to the next person's turn. Our story keeper tries to use Inspire Courage to help us out. Doesn't seem to work,
Oh
the
my
DM
god.
says a third time. Same for the witch's damaging spells, especially being built as a blaster caster, and the monsters seem immune to the multi-class's unarmed strikes. And this multi-class was built to be the best at specifically that. We almost die, and barely scrape by thanks to me leaning in on my channel positive energy, since my healing spells won't work either. When we confront the DM after, he says, "Oh, I designed it so your main stuff wouldn't work to force you to use other things." After us, after having us play a homebrew that forced us to narrowly build for only a few things we wanted. DMs, don't turn off your PC skills.
Fuck, dude. How many times have we talked about this kind of thing? Like, literally. Why does this shit keep coming up so often? Why are stories about this happen? Like, what are the thought why are we playing the game?
Yeah, I would get it if like maybe like one thing doesn't work or whatever, but no, no, especially in a system that you're forcing them to like build very specifically into a couple few things that they really like. No, you can't just do that.
Why are we playing the game if our shit doesn't work? Why are we playing the game if we can't do anything? What is the point? What are we doing? What why what when where how wonder god damn it just like how
Hey, you
like
know what's awesome? They're still playing together.
I know this is still a thing where it's just like okay where it's just like
Yeah,
you
OP responded in a comment saying that they reworked the system for a future campaign that allows retraining out of the prerequisite spells like in 5e. So you're still doing this. You're still doing this. You're still
like
doing this.
literally the highest voted comment is tell the GM to allow lower level requisite spells whatever, and yeah, it says like we reworked the system. Second highest goes like, I take it this isn't the usual dynamic at your table, because I've known GMs that would like run a let's try something different session, but only after discussing it up front. If everyone's down for it, it can be a real blast, but I respect my players far too much to ever pull a stunt like this without any prior notice. Unless this proves to be a one-time lack of judgment, I'd have a chat with the GM about expectations, and if it continues, I'd find another table. And OP responds saying, nah, we had zero warning that our PC's abilities would just get turned off. Like, and he also doesn't give any explanation for it. That's the biggest problem. Okay, look, I can get it. You know what? Sometimes, yeah, you want to be like, hey, not all of your tried and true fallback methods, are gonna fucking work. That's okay. Sometimes, yeah, you can be like, yo, some of your stuff isn't working for some reason, but there has to be a reason. You have to provide some kind of explanation for why this isn't working right now. Because then the PCs can either choose to try and find out the reason and get rid of it so they can get their normal powers, abilities, or whatever back, or like the GM wanted, they can find some other alternative means to accomplish their goals instead of just falling back on their tried and true methods. Like, sure, I get it. There can be precedent for that. But God damn it. All of these stories, at the core of it, the biggest problem is people just letting the smallest amount of fucking power and control go to their head. And they literally forget due process and logic or reason, because they're just like, well, I just want to do this thing, so I'm going to just do this thing. I'm going to force everyone else to try and do it too. It's like you cannot force anyone to do anything they don't want to do. You just got lucky with the fact that these people, for some reason, still want to do this with you. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand why. Because as soon as you do shit like that, it completely breaks the trust between player and GM. And that is so fucking important. Like having trust in your GM and vice versa in your players is absolutely paramount to having a great D&D or a great TTRPG experience. You have to be able to trust who you're playing with.
Yeah.
And, you can't do that right away if you're a new group, right? You have to build that trust up. But that still comes, and I will honestly, hell, I'll give you a bit of advice for anything, not just TTRPGs, but even with normal relationships. Until given any reason otherwise, you should always do your best to think the best of somebody, right? Don't automatically assume the worst right away. If they start showing you signs, 100%, once a person shows you who they are enough times, believe them. But before that, though, give them the benefit of the doubt. You know?
I think like the idea behind this isn't exactly the issue, it's the execution. Because like if you gave like a bunch of foreshadowing and like you had sessions leading up where certain things started to malfunction
go
or get
haywire or something.
But also that it also trying to make them maybe use things they wouldn't normally use. But you can't do that with the expectation that you're already bottlenecking what they have available because of your weird
because of your system. Yeah, your fucking
and like
homebrew experimental system.
There are TTRPGs that do that kind of stuff, like Shadowrun and things like that,
Yeah.
where it's like, we're going to hard limit you and we're going to take away things randomly because that's the kind of game it is. But you're also, that before you play.
It's a
Look at like Call of
prerequisite.
Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get fucked up before you play.
That's the intention, really.
In a lot of D&D systems, that's not the expectation. It's the outlier. And you should let your players know these things before you fuck them over. Again, I'm not saying that you can't do that well. It wasn't done well in this case, but you could do it well.
You can.
But
there's a prerequisite for it. There's precedent, like I said. Like
not when you're already hard limiting. That's the part that bothers me.
Why hard limit more? Like at that point, like you just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, oh my God,
It's a strange one.
People just get too caught up in their own shit, bro. All right. Let's go ahead and let's switch into the last one of the day that we've got for you guys. This one, this is the one that you guys may be waiting for. This is the heavy one. So, sit back, get some tea, and maybe prepare to cry a little bit because this one's pretty heavy. This is titled "Lost a Player and a Good Friend," along with the campaign that had been the center of our group of friends by Minutes Storm or Minutes Storm, whichever. I'm not sure which one you want to pronounce it. Either way. NSFW tag for the depressing reality, just to be safe, made me terribly emotional, so I feel the warning might be needed. This feels like it's been the most campaign-ending event I've ever had playing pen and paper games. Other times I've seen how we could continue on by adding other players, but this one is done for good. This was with a friend group. Work, family, and other obligations meant we only got around to this group about once a month, as scheduling made it nearly impossible to find time for even that. This was not ideal for most of us, of course, as we usually wasted a bit too much time catching up back on the events of last time. On top of the social catch-up, this meant pretty slow progress in-game, and we sometimes joked about it being another episode of Dragon Ball Z for the ridiculously little progress we sometimes made during a session. One big part of why this took so long was that most of the game was really more role-playing than anything else. This was great fun, but obviously made the game drag sometimes and be much more information-heavy than just combat. Now, with only 3 players, it was still manageable, but we always had to ensure we remembered exactly how everything was looking every single time. The players all wanted a lot of grand campaign-defining issues rather than having any kind of external problem to fight. We had these 3 players. Michael, the cursed beast barbarian who was slowly turning into a monstrosity. Ellis, the wild magic sorcerer being torn apart by her own magic. And Carlos, a genie warlock who desperately searched for a way to not end up trapped in his lamp upon death. The party was hardly well balanced and had a whole book of problems each, and it was by design. They wanted combat to be a failure state, and they lacked the tools to truly avoid it, however. which, made for a very interesting group to GM for. And it kept tensions high for the players, knowing their lack of tools meant that a lot of fights simply weren't possible to win. And instead forcing them to find alternate solutions. It was fantastic for the first 4 years of the game, but it had gotten gradually worse over the last year. Now, problem number one that had gotten really bad over the last year, because it took so long for us to get anywhere, they got impatient. Even without discussing with me, Michael and Ellis would quickly overplay their issue, pushing it at a rate that didn't make a lot of sense in game. Talking to them got the expected responses, and they were usually identical. Things are going too slowly in real life terms. But with so many scheduling conflicts, Michael being an ER doctor and Ellis having a lot of private travel plans and Carlos having a lot of family obligations, it was difficult for me to do much about it. I had time and flexibility. They, however, did not. Problem number two. Ellis was so impatient that she'd push herself in everywhere. It got bad enough that Carlos grabbed me after a game and said she was being a bit too attention-hogging. He didn't get as much time on account of being more passive, also more of a failure on my part, and when he did, Ellis would push herself in there as well. So I had a small talk with her, but she wasn't really willing to talk very much, which was rather odd considering she had been a friend of mine for almost 2 decades at this point and had never acted this way before. However, she agreed that she'd give the others more room to shine. I tried to figure out a way to manage the focus better as well on my end, but with limited time, this still caused some tension. But in what appeared as a very passive-aggressive act, and not at all what we had talked about previously, near the end of the next session, during a short scuffle with a hag that Carlos had tried to deal with, Ellis passed out from overusing magic. After the session, when we started talking about the next session, Carlos was a bit miffed at how the session ended up, to which Ellis promptly announced that she'd skip a session or two, probably. She made the usual assurances that everything was fine and wanted nothing changed. She just needed a personal break. I attempted to talk to her, which unfortunately mostly fell on deaf ears. Texts were dismissive and short, and she didn't want to talk on the phone at all. Even my wife, who was a childhood friend of hers, couldn't get through to her. And this is about where worry started to set in. She'd had dips in her life before, sure, but, she had no real support network to speak of and no family to go to, but she'd never been afraid to reach out to and rely on us in the past. There was, of course, the possibility that something was going on with one of the other players that I didn't know about, and I have missed stuff like this before, admittedly, but this kind of change still felt very concerning. Moving on, we played another session, just with Michael and Carlos this time, and started trying to arrange the next one. Once again, Ellis wasn't possible. Once again, it wasn't possible to get any dates out of Ellis, defaulting to I think I'll sit out another session response. And while she might have been trying to hog the attention a bit much lately, all 3 characters were necessary to actually make the group dynamic work. This much role-playing just didn't work as well when it was only 2 players. If we couldn't get her back in, there was a likelihood that we'd need to somehow bring in another player or just give up on this campaign and the stories we'd been building together entirely. Neither option made Carlos or Michael happy, so we kept trying to stay in touch with her, trying to figure out a solution to whatever was causing this. Suddenly then, a bit out of nowhere, Michael arranged a sudden meeting with me, my wife, who wasn't even a player in the group, and Carlos. Through his work, Michael was somehow able to find out that Ellis had been admitted to the ER and was about to be moved into hospice care because her fight with something wasn't going to end in her favor. She told none of us about any kind of illness, and I'm pretty sure Michael was wrong in even sharing this info with us, and he still lacked any specifics about what was going on. We'd seen nothing obvious, not even the doctor at the table. Thankfully, she reached out herself a few days later, saying she couldn't attend any more sessions. When pressed and suggestions of holding the session at her place were brought up, with Michael prodding about her with his info about having been by the ER, she finally admitted what was going on. She had cancer. Her frequent travel plans had been attempts to get help from hospitals and private clinics out of country. Every avenue of help she had sought out had failed. And there wasn't more to do now. She hadn't wanted us to know. She didn't want us to worry, and she wanted to tell us after she had successfully beat it. But unfortunately, that wasn't going to happen now. We held a single last session about 1 week ago. They were quite accommodating at the hospice. We went by when we had time, going at least once a day afterwards. Even the last session was very hard for her to participate in, so we didn't really try for another. Then, finally, yesterday, we learned that she had passed away. Nobody has even considered suggesting dates for another session, and we probably won't. We had the last send-off for her, and it's probably going to be how we let it end. I have not touched any notes since, and I probably won't ever again. Right now, this will have to be a horribly tragic end to a tale that should not have ended so early. 34 years old. Fuck cancer. End
Amen.
post. Yeah.
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 That's not how I thought this would go.
I know, right? Again, I said it at the top. It threw me for a loop. I was not expecting to get hit so hard here in the
I think,
feels and like,
I think this surmises something that we've said many times before on this channel, which as much as the people around you might annoy the crap out of you or piss you off, you don't necessarily know what they're going through behind closed doors. And if you do care about them, asking before making harsh or rash decisions might be a better solution to your problems. Because at the end of the day, this is something that we all like doing because we find it fun, a way to get away from the things we don't want to deal with or the shitty parts of real life. And, especially if you're playing with people and you care about them, you know them, and they're people that you willingly spend time with, make sure, check in about how people, on how people are doing. Even if it's not specifics, even if it's not the heavy stuff, even if it's just like, how has your day been going? Because that can mean a lot to people, especially if they feel like their back's up against the wall.
can always help exponentially. Again, like what I was just saying, friendships, family, relationships, it's all there for moments like this where you're maybe feeling at your lowest, you're feeling like you got no one else there. It's meant to help provide you with that support and that help that you need. Like, I mean, even OP says that, Ellis doesn't have anybody else to really turn to except kind of for them. She didn't have any family, she didn't have whatever, but she never, at least in the past, she never was afraid to try to reach out and rely on them. And, that's what friendship can do.
Yeah.
It's meant, relationships of all kinds are meant to elevate and enrich a person's experience of life. That is the point of it. And if it's not doing that, if it's doing the opposite, where it's being destructive and toxic, poisonous, then obviously you got to get away from that. But for things like this, where it is something that is truly enriching and is truly, enlightening and lifts you up and helps you, like you want to do your best to provide for that, to have it, to help it to grow, for it to grow stronger, right? Like that's what you want. And this particular one is just very tragic and sad on how it ended, because in a lot of ways, ironically though, I found it interesting how she was playing a character who was clearly, her own self-insert, like her wild magic was tearing her apart from the inside out. And there's a weird morbid poetic, or what poeticism, poeticness. I'm not entirely sure which word
I mean,
is.
poetic works.
Yeah, it's there's a poeticness about that is beautiful and also, a little tragic. Um, Honestly, I would have liked to know how you guys kind of ended it with that last session. Like you said, you sent her off, and I would have really liked to know like how you guys did it. Um, Obviously, it wasn't exactly the ending that you wanted fully, but even if it was just something nice, like she got a really great final a kill or attack off on an enemy or something, or maybe she sacrificed herself in some way to help or protect you guys or something. Something really beautiful and inspiring or amazing or feeling. It's this. it is always hard to lose a good friend, and quite like, almost like a family friend, like a long time companion. Um,
It's tough.
Especially to something like cancer, because that is not an easy way to go. And OPL will say that, you do have my heartfelt respect. Like, you guys, once you were able to figure out the problem, you were there for her. You did your best. You went there. The hospice was very accommodating, which is great. And I would like to believe that you made her last days and time here full of, fun, joy, and even if she couldn't in the real world maybe do all the things she wanted to, she could still escape, and she could still bring her life some light in her imagination, you know. At least that's what I hope. I wasn't there. He doesn't give any specifics about what they did, but I at least I choose to hope that was the case. Um,
I would hope so.
but yeah, I think that's probably the last one that we have for you today, y'all. Kind of hard to follow that particular one because that's a pretty heavy one. We've been here for a bit anyway. But we want to thank you guys so much if you stuck with us this far. We hope that you enjoyed the ride. Did a little bit of a turn up on you at the end there, right? Yeah, I didn't expect it to get so sour or so sad and dour. But also, kind of beautiful in a way as well. But
Yeah.
again, we hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like and a comment down below if you enjoyed the video, if you like what we talked about. If you have some thoughts yourselves, subscribe and share the channel, hit that notification bell, and we'll be sure to catch you guys next time when we dive back down into the archive. Take care, everybody. Check in on your friends and family.